evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the Reinvent Your Reality Podcast. My name is Jen Palco. So happy you could join me here today for episode number 15 of season 2 of this podcast. Really happy you're tuning in to join me today. Today I wanted to bring up something that has been a hot topic of choice, and it is the Olympics. So if you're not familiar with the Olympics, I'm sure you probably are, but they were supposed to happen last year. And due to COVID, they're happening right now as we speak. So big name in the news right now is a young girl, 24-year-old named Simone Biles. And she's a gymnast. And she decided recently to drop out of a particular stage in the competition for the U.S. team due to her mental health. Now, this was going around in the news. A lot of people were saying that she gave up, that she didn't have what it took to compete. And other people are giving her props saying, you know what? Your mental health is super, super important. And, props to her. Props to her. See, she's in a place where I don't know if she can win either way, just because people are going to be so harsh and judgmental on somebody of this caliber athlete. And for one, let me just say, the people who are watching the Olympics and who are judging, they're coming from a place of, this competition mindset. All of the athletes in the Olympics train very hard. We know that Simone Biles is one of the best athletes, one of the highest, and her lowest will be better than any of our best. Okay. Yet we still judge and stuff like that. But the thing about the level of competition in the Olympics, it's really difficult. Number one, it's really, really difficult. And, these young men and women will spend years and years and years from a very young age, from when they were, walking probably, training to get to this elite moment of trying to win a medal. And it begs the question, is it worth it? Is it worth it for the athlete? Well, in Biles' case, she thought, okay, it's not worth my mental health. She knew her body enough, and I give her props for this, to know that if she was not in a good mental place, that she could not perform physically. But the pressure that goes into competition at this level is crazy, is really, really crazy. And somebody like Simone Biles, probably, even though she's one of the best athletes in the world, feels like she's not, or she still feels like a loser because she didn't win the gold or get to that top level, right? It's the ego satisfaction of the Olympics. Now, I like watching the Olympics. There's a lot of games, and there's a lot of sports that I had no clue were in the Olympics. I mean, what was it? I was watching badminton, tabletop tennis, archery, all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But what I wanted to bring up today is this notion of being the best, and how we are shifting in this world from the ego satisfaction, this yang-powered aggressive energy, to a place of receptivity, to a place of yin energy. So if you don't know me, I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I've been practicing acupuncture for a good 8 years now. So if you know the yin and yang, concept of yin and yang, everything in the world, in the universe, works in balance, complementary to one another. We can't have yin without yang. You can't have yang without yin. And we see this when it comes out through how human beings behave in society. And I wanted to use the Olympics as just an example today, an example of the shift that's going on right now. So we've seen a lot of yang energy. So yang has to do with qi. It's movement. It's upward movement, rising, outward expansion. And yin is about receptivity. It's going within. It's about blood. Now get this. Qi is the commander of blood, but blood is the mother of qi. So you can't have one without the other. Blood is what anchors us. Yin is what anchors us. So you have athletes a lot of times who will really push themselves and push themselves and push themselves. And not even just anybody who's really, really competitive, or anybody who's a workaholic, or exercise addiction, is a whole other ball game. This obsession with control, right? Obsession with control. You have somebody who is constantly moving, and they never anchor themselves down. It's like they're not anchored to themselves. And it's this mindset, the being the best, that drives them, that pushes them. And they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, even though their body is calling out, help me, And what happens, you get deficient. You get yin deficient. And it's almost like a pot of, I always use this analogy, but the pot of boiling water or something like that. If you don't let steam out, or it's going to explode, or it's like, let me bring up the example of, if you've ever seen Willy Wonka and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where Charlie and his grandfather, they drink the fizzy pop, the fizzy lifting drink, that's what it is. And suddenly they're floating, and they're like, oh, this is kind of cool, right? No gravity. They're floating up in this, cylinder thing that Willy Wonka has. And suddenly they realize, we keep floating up and there's a fan above our heads. And if we keep floating up, we're going to die. We're going to get chopped up into little bits. So they realize that, by burping, by releasing air, releasing gas, I'm bringing myself down. I'm anchoring myself a little bit. So they come to this realization. So I'm going to use this analogy for life that, if we don't release stuff, or we don't anchor ourselves down, then we're going to keep floating and floating and floating, and eventually get chopped up into tiny bits and pieces, and something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I like that analogy, but the point is, if we keep going and going and going and pushing and pushing and pushing, and all of this chi, all of this yang energy is behind it, we become yin deficient, like I said. What does that look like? It can look like anxiety. It can look like insomnia. It can look like high blood pressure, headaches, anything. Think heat rises, right? Yang has to do with heat. There's nothing anchoring us down. If we never find that balance within, then we're blood deficient, right? We may get dizzy. We may get dried up. All kinds of stuff happen in our bodies. So this can happen in exercise, in sports, in competition. And somebody like Simone Biles was smart because she knew her body enough, even at 24 years old. A lot of the young athletes will push themselves past, injury and things like that, and then they have long-term damage. They're completely wiped out, completely drained. They have nothing left, no energy left, no blood left, nothing to anchor them in this life. So, the energy is unrooted, essentially. So it's interesting when it comes to the ego satisfaction and the shift, how we're moving from a place from ego satisfaction to true satisfaction in life. True satisfaction is listening to our bodies. True satisfaction is listening to ourselves, knowing ourselves enough. Ego satisfaction is doing it for other people, doing it for viewers. You have to ask yourself, okay, is it worth the gold medal? Is it worth the silver or bronze? At the end of the day, it's a symbol, right? It's a symbol for something else. And it's a symbol for, it's not like you open up the medal and there's $1 million in it or anything. It's a symbol. It's satisfying the ego. It's saying, I am the best, being the best. But when you're coming from a place of true satisfaction, then there is no best, because there is no separation between you and me and Simone Biles or any other athlete or any other celebrity. So there's nobody who is put on a pedestal or on a platform. And I think people are starting to shift to realize this, that you can be at the top and you still don't feel like it's good enough. It's like the anorexic, right? She gets skinnier and skinnier, or they get skinnier and skinnier, and they still never feel thin enough. Never feel thin enough. It's about control. Fear of losing control. That's all I'm saying. And what happens? You lack nourishment. You lack blood. You lack the thing that anchors you down. So we become obsessed with watching other people try to be the best, living through them. If we feel like we can't be the best ourselves, it gives us a little bit of a high, right? Gives us a little bit of a high. But, I think she was smart. I think she was smart to do it. I can understand where people are coming from, where they say, well, she's not she didn't have what it took to be in the Olympics and, to push through and stuff like that. But you know what? She knew that she might get injured and maybe it's not worth the ego satisfaction. Okay. Maybe she's okay with that. Maybe she's okay with the loss because now she doesn't have long-term damage or whatever view that she had on it. I think it was a smart view, and it's showing the shift more into that place of receptivity and listening to your body and not always doing things out of ego and doing things to satisfy other people's needs or what other people want you to do. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say today about it. But, yeah, anyway. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it so much. If you want to check out more of my stuff, my website is jenpalco.com. I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/jenpalco. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok now, unfortunately. But yeah, it's not so bad. I have a new book out, 12-Step Guide for the Self-Help Book Addict. So you can grab that on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, also on my website, jenpalco.com. Thanks for listening. And until next time, peace out.